Studied political science in Egypt before specializing in public administration in Brussels. A diplomat for his country of birth during the 1990s, he has worked in Washington, Beijing and Brussels. He is the co-author of Iraq Under Occupation and has also participated in producing works on Arab nationalism, the Islamic movements and non-Flemish nationalism. He is one of the greatest contemporary experts, and he is also the author of Jihad Made in USA and The Strategy of Chaos that you can find outside in French version.
Thank you, comrades. As she told you, my name is Mohamed Hassan. I'm an Ethiopian, ethnically Somali. The topic will be about Libya. I have visited Libya in the time of NATO bombardment. I had also a very long discussion with Libyan comrades there. And I have seen Libya. I have visited Libya twice. I have discussed and I have seen the situation on the ground. We produced, me and my comrades, when we were in Libya, NATO special bombardment on Comrade Khweldi, when they killed with 8 missiles all his families, most of the families. We went there, we made an interview with him, we checked the type of the bombardment and the type of the weapon they have used, the NATO. NATO denied that it have eliminated the whole family, except the father and 2 sons. And we have produced a film, me and my comrades, Michel Collot, a Belgian journalist, and we showed it to the world. Today I will address why Libya is invaded and what was the purpose. Is it Libyans are very naughty people? Did Libyans harm anybody? Of course. Or did NATO love the Libyans to liberate them, bring them to democracy? Of course. My first topic will be the 2008 general economic crisis of imperialism. As a consequence of this crisis, the inter-imperialist contradiction within the imperialist forces also become sharp. In the process is the emerging of the new multipolar world. You can only see Libya from this context. General crisis in Europe, serious economic crisis. United States also was in a serious economical crisis. The emerging of new world, particularly Asia, about 60% of humanity lives in Asia, and the most important dynamic economics in the world is no more in the so-called Western world, but is in Asia. China, Korea, Japan, India, and ASEAN countries. History turned against these 8% of the world who had got chance at one time, which I call it an Euro million. History turned against them because history is going back to its root. Asia, the Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean, and the Red Sea, and the Arab Gulf areas become very important. That's why in my book I said imperialism developed a new strategy. And I published the book in the time on the eve of the destruction of Libya. The strategy of chaos, imperialism in Islam. How you defeat your competitor if you are not able to dominate your competitor economically, you are not able to dominate your competitor militarily and dominate them, invade them, you are not able to compete. They have more capital in their hand. On the contrary, they are the biggest investors, even in Europe. Then you have to develop a strategy to fight them. And they developed a strategy what's called, if you cannot win it, burn it. Create a chaotic situation. Destroy it. Africa is the richest continent in the world. We Africans, we don't need anybody. Name it the resources Africa has. From water resources, agricultural resources, mineral resources, name it. Africa became important. And the importance of Africa will tilt the balance of forces. And in this context, Libya becomes important. We have to see Libya's invasion of NATO. It is an invasion of Africa. It is the gate to invade Africa and to make sure that Africa will be out of the new emerging, which is now, you have the SHANGAI group, you have the Alba on the other side in Latin America, and you have the new BRICS, which is group. How do you do that? You cannot destroy it only by bombing. What are the mechanisms to destroy it? The best example is to make Libya, through a very good experience they did, the Somalization of the Arab world. Somalis are one people. They speak one language. They have one religion. They are Sunnis. From Sunnis is even one tariqah. They live in an area very strategic. Not only that, according to the World Bank and the British imperialist petroleum companies, Somalia's gas and oil is 3 times bigger than Iraq. It has a coast of 3,300 kilometers from the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. If Indian Ocean is the biggest ocean in the world, whereby with the Red Sea, 80% of humanity is going to use that. The biggest economy is Asia, then Somalia must be destroyed. They destroyed Somalia in 1990s. And nobody looked at Somalia. How is possible Somalis can kill each other that way? They speak the same language. They have the same culture. They have the same psychology. In a real sense, they are a real nation as any which constitutes solid. And that Somalization experience was exported to Libya. Why Libya? Libya geographically is 1/3 of the United States. It's a very big country with a very small population of 6 million. Secondly, Libya, since 1969, despite whatever contradiction in the Libyan home, a modern Libyan state was established. Unfortunately, 1969 September, it was a renaissance for Libya. But automatically, Arab renaissance, Arab patriotism, Arab revolutionary thinking started declining. The days of Nasser, immediately, and the counter-revolution or reactionary element from Sadat to Mubarak who have taken over Egypt. Today, Egypt, 100% dependent on external food. In 1970, Egypt produced 85% of her own food. It made a land reform. Before 1952, in Egypt, 80% of the land was owned by 2,000 families. The remaining 20% owned by 20,000 families. The change in Egypt, and Egypt being the most important country. In 5 minutes, I have to stop and come to Libya. Libya, so big and so rich. And there was a change. There wasn't changes in Tunisia. It was a bastion of US and French imperialism. There was a popular revolt in Egypt, which have shaped the imperialist forces, have dominated Egypt for 40 years. And they have to engineer something. Engineered a reactionary war in Libya. In the name of democracy. In the name of exporting democracy for Libya. Is the imperialist pro-democracy to Libya today? There were 5,500,000 Africans living in Libya when I visited Libya. The Human Development Index of Libya was the highest in Africa and the highest in Latin America, even highest than Russia. Education, health, I conclude in order to discuss later on. The first victim in Libya and Syria and in Somalia is the Libyan women. 50% of the total population. The reactionaries, after they destroyed the Libyan state, the first thing in the first day they did, they allowed polygamy and they refused the right of the Libyan women who had rights as equal as men, participated in Libya in all fields from army to education. They were overthrown. Today Libya is ruled by terrorists. Libya nation is destroyed. A lot of terrorists from everywhere brought in. And Libya became a hell in the war. An imperialism strategy is, if we don't win it, destroy it. For everybody who wants to read that in details, it's in my book. For those who read in French, there is a big chapter on Libya. There is a big chapter on Somalia. There is a big chapter on Egypt. I selectively added all this in order our young to learn. And I conclude in Arabic proverb. لا تكون رسولا أمينا كون رسولا حكيما. الحكمة مش أمانة. Use your brain. Reduce your contradiction. Educate your children. Libya will survive, as Somalia will survive. It is a temporary setbacks, but if we unite, if we discuss, if we see the nature of the enemy, and it is mistakes, I'm sure Libya will be reconstructed. Thank you.